Ange Postecoglu, Temu, Jurgen Klopp. That's all it is. It's a Jurgen Klopp that doesn't quite work.
What point do we see a Premier League game played on Christmas Day? Now, let me make the case for money. Jurgen Klopp was this crazy attacking manager, and Arne Slot's, a bit more defensive. But I'm actually not sure it's that. I think they're quite similar. It's just he's just improved two players magnificently, and that's what a coach should do at its core.
Yeah, but that's really boring analysis that might be real.
Hello and welcome along to Not Another Sports Pod, episode number 26 with myself, David, and Mr. Oliver Wilson, recording this on Monday morning on December the 23rd. Ollie Wilson, we know you are most certainly filled with the joys of Christmas, merriment and festivity, and thanks. So how's your sort of pre-Christmas going, Mr. Wilson? I can hear it, the croak in your voice. Is Wilson the boozer back in town? We remember that from a few pods back.
No, I did have a good one on Saturday. We had the friends meet up, and I've normally never been able to make these for various reasons with work and stuff, and I managed to catch the back end of it on Saturday after work, and that was a fun time. No, this is just due to tiredness, I think, more than anything else. It's been a busy run up into Christmas, and I think I slept about 12 hours last night. I even forego the second round of games with the NFL yesterday evening, which shows how shattered I was. So, yeah, I was emotionally drained after the Eagles' loss and let the other NFL games just slip into the ether.
Ollie, I'm back in my childhood bedroom, my childhood village, and in the last 24 hours, I've lost count of the amount of people that have listened to the pod that said, Wilson really loves his sport, doesn't it, to me? So, Ollie, your reputation is going far and wide as the sports fanatic. I just think, just for those watching on YouTube, because I am back in my childhood bedroom, I just want a moment to appreciate the signed Diego Maradona Hand of God picture I have behind me, Ollie, signed by Peter Shilton and Diego Maradona. Don't come robbing this bedroom. It's actually not worth as much as you think. I think it's worth about £1,000 now, and I bought it about 15 years ago for a couple of £100. So very pleased with that. It is, in my mind, Maradona's Hand of God is the greatest sporting moment of all time. So there we go. Yeah, I think it's the most incredible, brazen act of cheating you've ever seen, and I think the line Hand of God just encapsulates the magic and madness of Maradona. So there we go. That's actually the only thing that's remained from my childhood bedroom. The rest of it's been stripped and sold, and it's now a blank canvas of a spare room. But there we go. Diego Maradona's Hand of God behind me, Ollie, and everyone is waiting, Ollie, the YouTube watchers, for the grand Ollie Wilson outhouse sport broadcasting extravaganza, which is that 2025 or beyond 2026, you reckon?
That is 2025. The planning permission is going through the process as we speak with the local council. So the great studio revamp is on the horizon. Well, you asked about how's it going, Christmassy and all that, and I've just realised that both of us are wearing black, very minimalist backdrop, and there is not really a sign of any sort of Christmassiness in our screens, aside from the calendar behind me that is a Simon's Cat calendar, if anybody knows the online cartoon, and it's got two cats fighting over presents. But aside from that, this is the most anti-Christmas podcast I've seen.
Can you wait for about 60 seconds? I'm going to run and get something very Christmassy.
Yeah, I can vamp. That's fine.
Okay.
We'll fill in the void, because I know
regale the listeners with an anecdote, maybe.
Oh, I'm the most uninteresting man at telling stories. I realised this week when I went to a golf competition down at Richmond Golf Club, and I was sat across from one of the lead producers at Sky Sports Golf, and this was definitely a moment that I was like, oh, this is quite good. Always wanted to work in golf. I'm sat here with somebody that could potentially make that happen. They're on the other side of the table. I've just played a round of golf with them as well. And playing a round of golf with somebody and kind of having a little bit of back and forth is very easy, because it's small chit chat in between shots. Sat opposite a table on each other, I realised that I'm probably the most boring man on the planet, and I realised I had very little to say. But thankfully, Dave has come back and saved me from this terrible, boring anecdote of a story, which he was going to listen to later on and go, what is he talking about here? By returning with an outrageously fluffy Santa hat.
Oversized Christmas Santa hat for those watching on YouTube, just to bring a bit of Christmas spirit to the party. Right, Ollie, in 2020, Christmas 2020, you regaled us with ahead of its time, really, poem about Christmas, which incorporated Boca Juniors' run to the semi-finals of the Copa Libertadores, if memory serves.
Yeah.
So have you produced something similar this time around on December the 23rd, 2024?
I do have something, yeah.
We're all ears, my friend.
Oh my God. I'm worried this is going to be too long, so I wonder if it's worth just sticking on the end of the pod rather than the beginning, because I did try and tick as many of the boxes for this calendar year as possible, and I realised there's quite a lot of sport has happened. So I might let the executive... Do you really want to hear it now, Dave?
I mean, I'm personally all ears, Ollie.
Okay, all right. 'Twas just before Christmas, near the end 2024, and all we were wondering was what was the score. But with football aplenty through the festive time, let's first have a look back at the last year in rhyme. Oh, what have we witnessed during an action-packed year? The athletes on display, and we've all shed a tear. It all started off as we go down this hole with the biggest event of all, the big Super Bowl. The Chiefs' kingdom's reign again upon high, and Patrick Mahomes throwing miracles through the sky. But the fans were more angry and rather more miffed by the presence in the stands. There stood Taylor Swift. Once that was done, the gridiron down tools, came plenty of events, making athletes look fools. The fact that the Gunners lost their firepower, while Premier League glory and Man City a shower. While over in Europe, English football won't float, as Real Madrid proved. Once again, they're the GOAT. Champions of Europe, none even come near, but fearless Bellingham would later find fear. A Euros for the ages, what English fans thought, get Gareth out, the papers retort. Never happy, never winning, just not good enough. 3 Lions in the final, tried calling Spain's bluff. A new group of Spaniards winning at Southgate's cost, and Spain's sporting stardom was tennis's loss. Nadal, nada, gone, retiring, still fighting alive, the king of clay before 2025. So Novak rules the roost, while paddle grows stronger, and tennis courts might not last, maybe a few years longer. Now this poem's gone a bit off the fairway, like golf's search for cash, like the Saudi tour play. A merger would come at the end of this year, but big names like John Rahm took the cash with a cheer, while Rory remains a decade with no major, yet still the winner's circle, he is no stranger. While Scheffler in handcuffs, yet on the course looks so free, and Schauffele and Bryson add to their major tally. And finally we finish the year at an end. Olympic gold medals still should have been mentioned, my friends. But Paris is nothing to the pull of Riyadh as boxing moves east for the slugfest we had. Usyk and Fury, a fight too close to call, but the Ukrainian winning and bowing out in the brawl. I was up.
Utterly fantastic.
I couldn't sleep on Friday night, and I spent my Friday evening between about 2 and 2:30 in the morning. Just, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, okay, we could do that.
Absolutely fantastic, Mr. Wilson, and something that will be a feature of Not Another Sports Pod for years to come, no doubt. Very well done indeed, my friend. Let's tuck into the good stuff, shall we? We want to talk Usyk Fury. We want to talk about Tiger Woods' son getting a hole-in-one. I want to ask the big question, will there ever be a Premier League game on Christmas Day? Ollie Wilson's got some good golf chat. But we've got to start with the Premier League title race. And let's start with Tottenham 3, Liverpool 6, Ollie, because it was a crazy game. And we've touched on Ange Postecoglu before. Ange Postecoglu came out with a great quote this week after his side beat Manchester United in the Carabao Cup, and he said, "Are you not entertained?" And I have a feeling that when Ange Postecoglu eventually leaves Tottenham, Ollie, the headlines are already written. It will either be he gets beaten 7-1 at home by Arsenal and the headline is, "Are you not entertained?" Or he wins a trophy and his famous "I always win a trophy in my second season" line gets put out there. Ange Postecoglu is the kind of man who, if he wanted to create a cult and invade some mad foreign island, I would follow him to do that. But do I think he's an exceptional football manager? I'm not so sure. Ollie. I'm not so sure. I think he is I think he's a bit of a madman. I think I would absolutely love to see Tottenham win a trophy. I think a lot of neutrals would, because I think it would be absolutely exceptional for a side like Tottenham, this unserious, carefree, devil-may-care, who knows what's going to happen, scoring 6, and they're the top scorers in the Premier League, and yet they're in the bottom half of the Premier League table, which is kind of a mad statistic. I'd love to see it happen. It's not going to happen, I don't think, because they are so open defensively. Liverpool scored 6. They honestly could have scored 12 or 15 goals. It was that crazy. And I just think it's a fantastic addition to the Premier League, but I think it's all going to end in tears. The one tiny caveat, Ollie, I will give him is that he doesn't have his first choice goalkeeper and he doesn't have his first choice 2 centre backs, and any side in the Premier League is going to look significantly worse without that. So I think it's probably only fair to truly judge him when those 2 are back in town. But for now, it's a mad run for Ange Postecoglu, but Liverpool top of the tree at Christmas.
Big shout out to the massive online retailer Temu. Ange Postecoglu, Temu, Jurgen Klopp. That's all it is. It's a Jurgen Klopp that doesn't quite work. And I think I said this before, if Postecoglu was winning games and had Tottenham second, first in the Premier League, we'd be saying, yeah, it's rock and roll football again. This wild Australian who has this attitude of just get forward, get attacking. Yeah, we'll concede a few, but we're going to batter everybody that comes in our path. And I think if they had a Harry Kane, like I think Harry Kane being there, I know obviously it's unlikely they score 6 as well against Liverpool this weekend, but if you had a centre forward that you would just guaranteed 20 goals out of, and I think I found myself saying this about so many clubs this year, just in general, that out and out centre forward has kind of gone from football. And there are so many clubs that you look at and say, if they just had that guy, if they had an Osimhen, if they had a Kane, that would kind of complete an attacking lineup, and Tottenham would probably look a little more safe and secure because they would be able to outscore literally anybody in front of them. They don't really have that. I don't see Solanke as being that guy to fill in that role at all. And yeah, I just think if Postecoglu won more games, we'd be lauding him on high this Christmas, saying that he is the second coming of Jurgen Klopp and this is the best thing since sliced bread to have ever happened for Tottenham. Instead, what you get is a guy that doesn't quite win enough to win everybody over, and you see the defensive fragility well, I like the fact that he probably doesn't.
As winning becomes secondary, Ollie. You know, he said, "Are you not entertained?" Is his whole thing is like entertainment is the most important thing. And there were 9 goals scored yesterday, and who cares that 6 of them went to Liverpool and 3 went to Tottenham? Like that's just part of the package. You know, are you not entertained? That's his whole thing. Like winning is just a second thing.
But this is the fickle nature of football fans, because we want entertainment. So if say Tottenham brought in someone like a Sean Dyche, right? And it was suddenly defensively very well structured, and it was rigid and a clear format. You stick plenty of men behind the ball and then you grab 1 or 2. Or even like a Jose Mourinho, obviously, like Spurs had. People were annoyed because that wasn't interesting enough to watch. Now you've got interesting. You don't know what's going to happen in a Tottenham game. It's great. You could flip a coin, and I feel sorry for anybody that's trying to do like a soccer 6 or some sort of acca and putting a Tottenham scoreline in, because haven't got a clue what it's going to be. It's probably going to be at least 3 goals. That's the only thing you can go for. Over 3 goals in a Tottenham game is pretty good. But aside from that, it's a wild roller coaster ride. So there is the entertainment, and then people turn around and go, well, I want to be entertained, but I want to be winning. And it's like, well, you want to have your cake and eat it as well. And that's the trouble as sports fans, is we've got to a point where we want the entertainment because we know the Premier League is the best league in the world in terms of its watchability. And we also, though, want to see whichever club we support winning, because we're sports fans and we don't like losing. It makes us feel horrible. So if you want to have your cake and eat it as well, Ange Postecoglu isn't the guy for you. If you want to have a fun ride and be entertained, that's fine. And I think as a neutral towards Tottenham, I love the fact that Postecoglu's there. And I hope he brings a trophy to Spurs this year.
Do you think he could?
Why not?
Carabao Cup semis, they got Liverpool over 2 legs. I mean, maybe Liverpool rest players, but that feels unlikely. Europa League, I mean, that's one they could. I mean, if he does it, if he wins a trophy, even if they finish 14th in the Premier League, Ollie, that is just 2 fingers up at anyone who's doubted Big Ange, no?
And I'd love the idea of, say, a Europa League trophy. Even a Carabao Cup would be enough for Spurs fans because they've been so
Europa
starved.
League, they build a statue.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be absolutely... Carabao Cup, obviously, huge as well. But Europa League, a European trophy, I mean, they'd build a statue.
And if they did that and then they got rid of him at the end of the year, that would be so positive. I mean, that would sum up what his very brief reign at Tottenham would be. It was like a huge mix of big success and massive failure all in one go. And I think that's what you've got. And you get that within a 90-minute football game, let alone across like a month of Premier League games for Tottenham.
Just regarding Liverpool, Ollie, just something that I've been considering recently. I know that once a football narrative is set, it's very difficult to displace, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone. I believe something about football, and no matter what evidence I see to the contrary or complexities to the situation, I stick with my initial judgment. And something that has come out recently, which I understand is it's an easy fit, is this idea that every game that Jurgen Klopp played was this 5-5 heavy metal crazy football, and every game and Arne Slot is this very pragmatic defensive Dutchman. And I understand that chalk and cheese approach, but it's not quite like that. I mean, not every game under Jurgen Klopp was hugely exciting. It wasn't just let's try and outscore you half the time. He's quite pragmatic in certain games. And by a similar token, Arne Slot's not really a defensive coach. I mean, when Liverpool had 10 men against Fulham the other day, he had 5 forwards at the end of the game chasing it. So, he just involved in a 9-goal game against Tottenham because Liverpool defensively were pretty sloppy at the end. So I don't think it's quite as black and white as that. I've said this before on Not Another Sports Pod, but I honestly think that almost nothing's changed in many regards apart from 2 things. Because if you look at the Liverpool backline, it's essentially the same backline that's been there for the last decade. The backline that started yesterday with Robertson, Van Dijk, Joe Gomez, obviously that's a bit interchangeable, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Alisson. I mean, that's been Liverpool's defence for 10 years, really. Mo Salah's doing what Mo Salah does. Then the rest of the players are pretty much performing at the same level we've seen the last few years. 2 things have changed. One, he's turned Luis Diaz into a world-class footballer. Now, Luis Diaz had never scored more than 16 goals in a season. Didn't do it in Colombia, didn't do it in Portugal, hasn't done it at Liverpool. He's now got 11 goals less than halfway through the season. He's going to smash that total of 16 goals, the maximum of 16 goals he's scored in a season. He's 27, 28 years of age. So Arne Slot has almost doubled Luis Diaz's output in terms of goals and assists. So he's done that for Luis Diaz. Played him as a number 9 when he's never played as a number 9 before. And he's turned Ryan Gravenberch into the best box-to-box central midfielder in the Premier League by an absolute distance. Ryan Gravenberch is an astonishing box-to-box central midfielder. He's the player that Jurgen Klopp presumably thought he was buying. I can only assume that Arne Slot has put an arm round Ryan Gravenberch's shoulder, spoken to him in Dutch, and said, "You're the man." And he's coaxed this wonderful, wonderful footballer out of him. I can't see a better all-round central midfielder in the Premier League than Ryan Gravenberch. So I think he's changed 2 players, and that is enough at the sharp end of the Premier League table to go from being a side that is sort of 4th or 3rd and just about challenging to being the best side in the league, because those 2 players just get pushed up a notch, and suddenly the whole team gets pushed up a notch. So yeah, I think you can read so much into Arne Slot's time, and I know it's a very comfortable narrative of Jurgen Klopp was this crazy attacking manager and Arne Slot's a bit more defensive, but I'm actually not sure it's that. I think they're quite similar. It's just he's just improved 2 players magnificently, and that's what a coach should do at its core.
Yeah, but that's really boring analysis that might be real. Why would you ruin what is a really fun stereotyping pigeonhole of 2 different managers and get to say that they're Jekyll and Hyde to each other, chalk and cheese and complete opposites? That's way more interesting. That's my extreme view that I need in football. I don't need some pragmatic Daily Telegraph breakdown of actually what's happening behind the scenes at Liverpool and the fine touches that separate a Liverpool from a Manchester City, an Arsenal, etc. No, come on, David.
This one thing changed Liverpool forever,
Yeah, come on. Where's my clickbait? We're never going to get 100,000 subscribers off something like that. Yeah, NASP, where's my clickbait? No, I think you're right. I mean, I've spoken with a number of people in the past who say that when you get to the upper echelon of any sport, like the margins between good and great are 3 to 5%, right? Everybody can sprint a certain pace. Everybody can last 90 minutes in a football game or has the fitness level. Everybody can make that pass if given an extra yard of space, right? But you remove another 30 centimetres and some people maybe get a bit more flustered. It's those tiny margins. And that's all it takes for Arne Slot. If you want to elevate this Liverpool team again, a fresh face certainly helps in terms of just reviving the side a little bit. I think that's unquestionable, of just having a new face in the building. And then
Great.
And then if you can just make those little tweaks somewhere, it can elevate you. And I think the trouble is that you compare, say, what Arne Slot's done now to what Paul Amorim is doing at Manchester United, and it's like, unfortunately, United have taken so many steps back that it's not little tweaks that need to be made. It's a massive overhaul. Cannot defend at a set piece.
Ollie.
Cannot run as a football club or as a business correctly. I mean, do you hear the story about the water leak in the press room during his press conference? No. Yeah, like water dripping from the roof onto the journalists in the front row of his press conference this week. I mean, it's embarrassing. This is the biggest club in England still to me, considering the huge run of form that they had under Ferguson at one of the most pivotal times in world football. Without question, at this point, the biggest club in English football historically for people of our generation and maybe even a bit younger as well. And for this club to have regular stories of leaks in the stadium, shoddy training facilities, and then a complete inability to even deal with the most basic things in football like set pieces, I feel so sorry for Amorim. He's turned up at this club, obviously been lured. Manchester United, there's Real Madrid, Barcelona, and then there's Manchester United. It's like that half step down of teams that you can't turn down. I'm glad you said that loudly,
because in terms of social media followings, which is a good proxy these days really for popularity of a football club globally, Real Madrid, Barcelona out in front, and then it's Manchester United. So despite a decade of very patchy form, they are still an absolute giant of a football club. Where I differ from you here is that I don't feel sorry for Ruben Amorim, because any bit of due diligence whatsoever would have shown him that he can be the greatest football manager in the history of the game, Ollie. I don't know how you're turning this around without a guarantee of 500 million to bring in 10 new top quality footballers. I honestly think Man United fans wouldn't cry if you got rid of 90% of that squad, and that's always a dangerous place to be. You could keep 5 or 6 players in that squad, but what's happened is the DNA of that squad is just rotten to the core now, and you actually need to go in and get rid of 80% of those footballers and start again. You start again as Ferguson did in the 90s. Use half the academy kids, at least you'll keep the fans on side. Don't get relegated, obviously, and then hope that there's a budget of 200, 300, 400 million to go and buy £50 million footballers to polish it up, because they are so far off. And Ruben Amorim, I'm sorry, he's a great communicator. He won titles at Sporting. He's obviously a charismatic guy. What have you done? Like, why did you go there? You just stay at Sporting till May. There are always massive jobs available every summer. And you would be, alongside Xabi Alonso still probably, and one or two others, one of the hottest young prospects in Europe. And everyone wants an attractive 39-year-old Portuguese coach. You're still going to be in demand. What was he scared of that nobody would want him next summer? Crazy decision. And as I say, he could be the greatest coach in the history of the game, Ollie. But you need 5 years and a shit load of money to turn that round. Yeah,
it's a nightmare situation, and it can't be underestimated how difficult it is to change a squad when it's rotten to the core. Like, you can be a manager and say, I'm going to go in and stamp my authority. But as we've seen throughout Premier League football in the last 20 years, look at what happened with AVB, with a Tottenham side that had no reason to turn him away. And then obviously what happened with him at Chelsea as well. Like, you can go in there and be the hot new shit as a manager, but as soon as the dressing room goes, nah, we're not having that, you're lost. You are done completely. So to change the attitudes of a dressing room that clearly has massive issues running through it in terms of motivation and desire is almost an impossible task without completely revamping. And you need to bring in kind of next level athlete psychopaths like a Cristiano Ronaldo or a LeBron James, who is going to sit after training and say, yo, we just did training, but we're doing another hour. We keep going until we get this right. It's not good enough to just go home and do this. And those are very rare commodities, particularly in modern day sport right now, when, the amount of slamming that Jordan got after the Last Dance documentary of, oh, that was miserable, that was bullying. And it's like, it was bullying, but he bullied people because he wanted to win. And that's next level greatness. That's what a Roy Keane did with that United side in the late 90s, early 2000s. He was there to make sure everybody stayed in line. And people didn't like it at the time. But people like lifting Premier League trophies. So that's what you need. I don't see there's a single character in that United side. And you would have hoped it would have been maybe someone like a Marcus Rashford, comes up through the club, gets his chance, bursts onto the scene. But I think in this modern day football era, again, it's just too easy to have that moment and then be like, I'm the fucking man. And maybe take the foot off the gas, or maybe
Rashford leave,
he just isn't that guy. Yeah, he's on his way out, without a doubt.
I mean, who's taking 350 grand a week for Marcus Rashford, by the way? He's going to have to drop his wage demands by half if he actually wants to leave the club. I'd hate. This would piss me off, right? Because Marcus had so much promise and has been such a great flash in the pan of, God, if you could do this 5 weeks in 6, you'd be an unbelievably good Premier League winger to see, and can finish, can come inside, can go down the line, can beat a man, can play balls from deep. And if he were to not drop his wages and to ride out at United and have that kind of Scott Sinclair moment where you go, just take the money. I mean, that's why you're not that guy at United right now. If you're I'm just going to take the money guy, you're never going to be that guy. Somewhere. Man United still pay a chunk of his wages because, as I say, no one in their right mind is taking Marcus Rashford on 350 grand a week.
Yeah,
and it's I wonder what happens there. To be honest, very interesting indeed. Because I also don't think it's necessarily. I don't think you can ever have a free hit at a club like Manchester United. And I've spoken about this before, not on the Sports Pod, but Ten Hag wins back-to-back trophies and gets sacked. Mourinho wins the Europa League and finished second and gets sacked. Solskjaer finished third, then finished second, and then got sacked. So I don't think it's like some complete free hit for him. I think he's made a bad decision, which people do in their career. Mm-hmm. I think he's lucky that he's young enough that... Look, I mean, he's only been in charge of 9 or 10 games, Ollie. Maybe he turns it around, but he needs to be given years.
United are bad enough right now that it's a free hit for him almost. Like, if whatever happens at United, people will go, yeah, but the whole place is falling apart. And yeah, that won't damage his reputation as much as it might do. But then he could end up being one of those guys that has to go looking for a mid-table job somewhere rather than taking the big job for his next job. But look, we're writing it off, as you say, very early at the moment.
Maybe he turns
miracles happen, right? It's the season, so
Ollie, to turn this Man United squad into even challengers for the Premier League title, if he could do that within the next 2 or 3 years, that would be some accomplishment. Bearing in mind, you've got Man City, obviously, who we'll talk about going through a rough patch, but they're Man City.
Is that what we're calling
Liverpool,
it?
Great squad, new coach. Arsenal only going in one direction under Arteta. Chelsea there or thereabout. The competition is crazy. So Amorim, if he can do it, if in a couple of years we're talking about Man United as challengers for the Premier League title, Ollie, I would have said, wow, you are a top coach.
Yeah.
Let's
talk about City.
Pep Guardiola's mental health.
Dude, put an arm, reach out at Christmas in a very nice, positive way.
I'm old age, Ollie, but I think I understand the comedic element to let's all laugh at Pep Guardiola. I understand that 100%. But is there not a human element of it's extremely uncomfortable? And Ollie and I actually had this mini conversation in the middle of a packed office on Saturday, so potentially I couldn't completely express what I thought. But is there not a side to everyone that watches a man's entire professional world crumbling not just crumbling actually, on fire all around him, and he doesn't have seemingly a clue how to stop it, how to fix it, how to change it? And you are watching a man whose entire footballing philosophy almost is being destroyed because everything he thought he knew about football and how to win football matches has now gone, and he can't fix it. They're in a precipitous freefall. They've lost 9 in 12 or whatever it is, something that is just incomprehensible given the level they're at. I can't personally remember a fall like this in Premier League history. Maybe Mourinho at Chelsea, but I don't think it's the same high and I don't think it's the same low. I remember Jurgen Klopp at Borussia Dortmund, Ollie, won the league and then I think it was in the relegation places at Christmas. But again, I don't think you're talking about the same high because Man City was so dominant for so long with the same group of footballers. So yeah, just on Pep Guardiola's mental health, I'd really love it if an interviewer, and I watched his interviews after the last couple of games, I'd really love it, Ollie, if a producer and the person interviewing him had not even the balls, just had the nuance at the top of the interview or at the end of the interview, just to say, Pep, obviously this is an incredibly difficult time for you professionally. Just checking in, are you okay? Is everything okay with you? Have you got enough people around you? I'd love to hear that on air. If we're serious about men's mental health, And, suicide's the biggest killer of men under the age of 50. Why not? Why shouldn't that be out on telly? I think it would take a brave producer to say, let's just ask Pep if he's okay at the end. At the end of an interview, just be like, Pep, have you got enough people around you? So am I just a soft bastard in my old age, Ollie?
No. One of the best interactions I had with an athlete doing a interview was we were sat around a table. Then Minnesota Vikings. You can tell it's a weird morning for me. Minnesota Vikings running back Dalvin Cook, who's from Florida, went to university down there as well, and now plays obviously I can't remember where Dalvin Cook is now because his career's just dropped off a cliff. But anyway, he was a hot running back in the NFL then, and we're having this conversation, and it was when the Hurricanes had just battered Florida, and we're all having this chat. He's giving us very short answers because he's just been on a flight, he's jet lagged, and people are asking him, "Oh, how's it to be in England?" Blah blah. And just as he's about to walk off, I would say, Dalvin, is everything okay back home? Obviously, Florida's been hit massively. And he stopped, paused, and genuinely went, "Yeah, man, thanks for asking that. No, people are okay. My family's just kind of avoided it and everything, but obviously worried about the people of Florida and stuff. But really appreciate you kind of asking that." And it's the only thing I have with your kind of scenario of asking Guardiola this question is because he's such a prick in the media at the moment. He'd just go, "Yeah, I'm fine. Mm-hmm. No, why would I not be fine? I'm a manager of Manchester City. Things are bad, but I'm fine.
Happy. I'm so happy.
This is a great time. It's Christmas. Yeah, I'm good." And it would come off in such a horrible way that, because I do think it is important sometimes for reporters, maybe if somebody's having an absolute shocker or something like that, not to, be, "Is everything okay at home? Have you got some family with you?" and be patronising about it, but just to say, "Look, are you doing okay? It's obviously been tough at the moment if you're not scoring goals," or something like that.
Personally, as a man.
Have you got that network around you or something to get, just because it's more interesting than not scoring any goals at the moment, ain't Marcus, tough at the moment.
9 defeats in 12, eh? Didn't see that one coming, did we, Pep?
Yeah. So, as I say, I just think Guardiola would just turn it into some horrible, sarky retort of him saying...
Also, look, the kind of counter is, whatever happens, Ollie, he could get sacked tomorrow, retire tomorrow. He goes down as... someone that's won everything as a player and as a coach, never has to work another day in his life, must have amassed untold wealth over the last decade, especially at Manchester City. So, I mean, yeah, but being rich, can you be deeply unhappy and be rich? Of course you can. Plenty of evidence of that out there. But, I don't know. It's just a man's world completely crumbling around him.
What it is it's awkward. Now? It's awkward because...
Yeah, it is awkward.
Because or it looks like, at least, from everything that he's doing and saying... he doesn't know how to handle this, and that's more weird. He just isn't mentally capable to digest the fact that this side isn't winning. I think because it's getting bored. The hand scratching thing a couple of weeks ago was genuinely weird and scary. I get it. Things get stressful. It happens, and he's a man that lives and breathes football. But it's not. Not ideal, is it? To watch that in public.
Self-harm is what he did.
Yeah.
He scratched his face because he was stressed.
And then just to see this continual walls being built around him emotionally. He is just brick walling everything away from him. And it's his personality is just going into a bunker for safety. And it's
how does this end? Do you think they finish sort of 7th or 8th and it's just in the summer, they go out and sign 4 or 5 new players, and he has another 2-year crack at this?
He doesn't get sacked. It just doesn't happen for Manchester City. You are allowed to have a year when you've brought so much to that club where nothing goes right for whatever reason, and they'll point to the injuries, they'll point to the Rodri, they'll point to the fact that some of those players are just getting a little bit older now. You talked about Liverpool's side, and that back line not being changed over the last 7 years or so. There's a lot of players in that Man City side that have been through all of this with City, and maybe it's time to just start looking for some other people. De Bruyne is incredible, but the consistency of his ability to be fit is a bit of a problem this year, for instance. So, look, it just takes a revamp and a revival, and they're not going to bring in an Arne Slot. They're going to keep with Pep, obviously, because they've given him the contract. The only way it ends is if Pep says, "This is killing me. This is genuinely affecting me."
Which he's not going to do. He's obviously too proud to do it.
Yeah. So I think it's just you ride out this year, you see what happens. title isn't happening this year. Maybe there's some success in Europe or something like that. But yeah, it's just City fans have just have a little come down and then get back to expectations being sky high at the start of next season. Because it will be. And that's the trouble for Guardiola, is that when you're at that sort of club, it doesn't matter if you have one bad year. The expectation is, right, you get us back to the top as quickly as possible. And that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
next year is almost more interesting.
The summer.
Yeah. They'll definitely bring in new faces.
Wrapping up the Premier League, Ollie, Alexander Isak, price tag watch. You're still not having him at 100 million.
No.
Scored a hat-trick at the weekend.
Scored a hat-trick against Ipswich. One of them was completely gifted to him. Not having this. It's not having this. Like, Alexander Isak is a lovely stocking filler for a Premier League side, but that's not the big Christmas present under the tree for me. No.
Okay,
I want the big box.
This is going to be a recurring theme. We'll come back to this.
We need a digital scale that we can put into the video of Isak's value, of where we see it at the moment, and when it hits 100 million,
like Bitcoin live trackers and stuff, like a stock market live tracker. Yeah. Should we move on from the? Just before we wrap up on the Premier League, Ollie, I'll squeeze this in here. As it feels like a good place to fit it in. At what point do we see a Premier League game played on Christmas Day? Now, let me make the case for money. If we could have one Premier League game on Christmas Day, you couldn't have it in the morning, you couldn't have it in the afternoon. You'd have to have it at about 6 p.m. or a 7 p.m. game, something like that. That would give anyone the chance to have their Christmas Day, do all the family stuff, and then just nip off, if you're assuming you're local, nip off to watch the football. So for the match goers, away fans, basically, it wouldn't happen. I wouldn't have thought, unless you could get like a Merseyside derby or something like that. You could have
There's
one
enough
game.
London derbies.
Say again?
There's enough London derbies that would easily happen. Yeah.
Something like that. So you could trial it like that. You have the one game, as I say, 6, 7 p.m. Christmas Eve. If you sort of had your Christmas Day by then, things are wrapping up. Auntie Susan's starting to get a bit annoying and you're falling out with your, whatever. Now's a nice time just to nip off to the football. I think that the clubs would pretend they're against it. And then if they're the only game being played on Christmas Day, and there's a nice little perk to that, one of the very few games in global football being played that day, it's there's something in that. So obviously money to be made because people will watch that. If a Merseyside derby on at 6 p.m. on Christmas Day, come on, like everyone's watching that. And then obviously the counter, won't someone think of the players? Well, not really, because we don't think about the players for anything else. So like, what, they still get Christmas morning with their kids, whatever. If that, people don't care about the players in all of this. Rightly or wrongly, by the way. So yeah, I think it could happen. I think what's the counter argument? Well, there's plenty of very valid counter arguments.
No, there isn't. There really isn't. There's not. We've seen it in loads of sports. American football, 2 games on Christmas Day coming up exclusively on Netflix in the UK for some reason this year, even though they don't have any other NFL. But whatever, that's fine. I've got a Netflix subscription. NBA continually has big matches on Christmas Day. Couple of huge fixtures. It's always like the finals repeat or something like that. It's been done in the US to great effect of packed stadiums, then huge TV audiences, both internally and globally. And if you think about it, we've got Boxing Day football. So these players aren't having a fun Christmas Day anyway, really. They've got the day off and they're having their turkey and stuff like that and maybe a glass of wine or something. But I would argue that as a player, having the Christmas Day game would be better because then you've got a longer time before your next fixture. So you could have a Christmas Day evening once the game is done with the wife, with the girlfriend, and then Boxing Day is very much more of your Christmas Day. And we have loads of people that have a delayed Christmas Day on Boxing Day because of shift work in hospitals or because you've got parents that are divorced, so you have Christmas Day with one and then Boxing Day with the other and stuff. So it's not that abnormal a thing to happen. So that argument goes out the window of having your Christmas Day on Boxing Day or something like that. So that doesn't come into it. The money is too good to be there for a viewing audience in the UK, let alone globally with the Premier League, the impact in the US that it's got. The only thing I think would almost be the Premier League going up against big matches in the NBA and the NFL would be tough for a US audience slightly, because you go, well, do I want to watch Steph Curry and the Warriors or do I want to see? So they would have to have it be a big game. And this is where we get to my next point of let's turn Boxing Day, like the Argentinians do, into rivalry day. You've had your nice friendly Christmas and goodwill to all men. Now let's have a fight on Boxing Day with Football Factory
Just explain,
fans.
Ollie, to the listeners what they've done in the Argentine League, because they've essentially created a round of fixtures which is exclusively for derbies.
Yeah, it's mental. It is the most ludicrous idea that surely police up and down the country are going, and particularly in Buenos Aires, are going, what on earth were you thinking? We're going to have every major derby in Argentinian football played on the same weekend. It's asking for trouble, but it works. It generates huge audiences, and it's kind of like a bit of a roller coaster of a weekend in terms of, every game means so much to every single team. So why not have Boxing Day being
It makes sense with the travel.
Yeah, the traditional Manchester derby, Merseyside derby. Like, again, you'd have to spread it out over a couple of days maybe because of policing, etc. Particularly in London, of course, it has the potential to be a bit of a nightmare. So you'd have, say, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and another day to have those derbies in or something. And it would be tough, but it would be manageable. It'd be workable for sure to be able to do this. And you just make sure you have one of the biggest games is always on that Boxing Day, either a Merseyside derby, a Manchester derby, or a big North London derby or something like that. And that's what you have. And I think it would work so well. And it amazes me that the Premier League haven't done this yet, either the derby weekend idea or having a game on Christmas Day, because we've sold ourselves for money in this game a long time ago. So
just why doesn't it get played in Saudi Arabia on
Christmas Day in Saudi Arabia? Riyadh season finishes with the North London derby in Jeddah.
Okay, that's 40 minutes on the Premier League. Let's talk about other sport. Usyk Fury. I only seen the highlights. You watched it live, Ollie, didn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, heavyweight boxing at its apex is some spectacle, and this was no different. Usyk. Well, you talk us through it because you watched it live, and I'll chip in where I can.
Usyk looks like one of the novelty weightlifters in Family Guy coming into this. I mean, he looks shredded, lean. He was bigger in the last fight. He put on a lot more weight for the last fight, and they kind of switched roles. Of last time Fury came in leaner, Usyk was stronger, commanded the ring, made it happen. This time Fury's gone, right, I'm going to pack on more pounds. And he didn't look great in terms of Fury. He looked quite heavy. But I think that's what he was trying to do, add a bit more force, try and dominate the ring. And Usyk just has this ability of, when you think a round is getting done, the last minute he suddenly turns up and starts just firing a few more cleaner shots, a couple of cleaner jabs. And really from the 6th round on, this became the pattern for a lot of the fight of Fury would start off okay, or it'd be a fairly even round, and then it would look like the Fury was maybe getting a bit tired. Usyk might look like he was getting a bit leggy as well late on in the round, and then he suddenly found a little extra gear to pop off a few more. It was a really interesting fight if you like boxing and you kind of weren't just looking for, just knock him out. Yeah, that's what we want. Like it was an entertaining fight for sure, but there was no doubt that it was Usyk for me. I think everybody else saw it as Usyk as well. It's 2 wins now over Fury for him. He's definitely the dominant force in the heavyweight category right now. It was a really, really fun watch and worth the money, actually. Like, there's not many times I've said that about heavyweight boxing in the past, but yeah, definitely worth the money that people paid for the fight. And, the scorecard was a bit off. Yeah, the judges maybe gave it a little too one-sided towards Usyk. It was 8-4 rounds, basically, to the Ukrainian. I think it was tighter than that, but you got the right result at the end. And I found it odd that a lot of people were saying, well, Fury should have had more rounds. It's like, yeah, but he didn't win. And that's what we just want in boxing, is the correct outcome. And that's what we got. It was really good.
What next for Fury?
I don't know. I mean, you can't go and have a third fight against Usyk.
Fighting him again. I mean, why would he?
No, you can't. You can't lose twice and say, I want a rematch. It just doesn't work. And this is where I sent you a message about this. This is where boxing goes from being like so good. We had a really good fight. Sure, it was in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, and like that's maybe not necessarily where I want to see a lot of these big fights taking place, but I understand it. It was on a good time for the UK, which was cool. Like, great time of year, just have loads of sport. And I finished watching the fight and going, God, the heavyweight division has stood up to the big presence that it needs to be, and it's produced the entertainment that people want. And just as Usyk's talking about, like, in the ring after the fight, he's doing this for his kids and his family, and an anecdote about his sons, Daniel fucking Dubois just steps into the ring, grabs a microphone, and it all gets very WWF pantomime with Dubois being like, I want another shot at you, Usyk. I want another shot. And like, can't we just let the quality of the sport do the talking rather than this like weird pantomime drama taking place? And like, Daniel Dubois isn't in Usyk's level yet, I don't think, as a fighter. I don't think many people would say that. He's probably got a shout after obviously convincingly getting rid of Joshua and being a really good up-and-coming fighter in the heavyweight division. But to just ruin a post-fight moment like that, there's too much of this in boxing. And I kind of hope Fury just takes a step away and starts knocking off some of these people like Daniel Dubois and going, hey, look, if you want to be, even have a crack at the best in the world right now, you still got to come through me. Because I still think Fury's probably the second best fighter in the world in terms of the heavyweight division, up there in the top 3 easily. So I hope all these upstarts have to kind of go through Fury to get to Usyk over the next 2 years. And then Fury, I think then you get him on the big decline and suddenly you're looking at, right, okay, you've had your time maybe. But I think there's a couple of years of Fury still being right up there as being a huge draw. Do you think
Fury's tempted by the fight against Anthony Joshua? Beat Joshua, change the trajectory of his career slightly, and then maybe have 1 or 2 fights after that?
I'm not sure.
If he doesn't, it's kind of a now or never, really.
Yeah, if it's going to happen, it has to happen now. But it's like so many fights that we've seen in the past that it's happening just too late. That's the trouble.
It'll happen in like 7 years, won't it?
Yeah, and I don't think beating Joshua really helps his case at the moment, because Joshua isn't considered the top dog or close to being in that top category at the moment in the heavyweight division. So I think if Fury beats Joshua, if he loses to Joshua, he's got much more to lose than he has to gain from fighting Anthony Joshua right now, aside from the financial windfall of 2 big British fighters. But I think you'd get that probably now with Dubois instead of AJ. So yeah, I think we missed out on Fury Joshua at its peak for sure. But
massive shame.
But great work from boxing to get this fight done. I think it was on every platform. Andy Clark, our mate, was doing it on Sky. They had the DAZN guys doing it. Did TNT have it as well? I can't remember. Like everywhere. Yeah, and that's
TNT had it as well.
That's the weird thing about boxing now. It's like you get one fight shown on 3 channels. You'd never have that with like the Premier League being shown on BBC, ITV, Sky all at once or something like that. It's so bonkers.
And heavyweight boxing as well just has that draw still of your non-boxing fans. Like, if you watch that, you don't need to know everything about the intricacies of boxing to still, A, have an opinion on it, and B, most importantly, just be captivated by the spectacle of it. And it was just unbelievable. Just when you watch it, it's so fascinating. The movement, the footwork, the physicality, like the difference in the shape between the 2 boxers. And then even at the end, I mean, you could not know that much about boxing, but still realise that Usyk's intent means that he should have won that fight. And then obviously that's how it played out in the points. But like, you don't need to know everything about boxing. You could not even listen to the commentary and watch that fight, and still I think most people would gauge that, yeah, like Usyk he threw more punches and therefore probably won the fight. So yeah, yeah, it was. I mean, heavyweight boxing at its peak is something just absolutely bonkers to watch, and it's great.
Yeah. Talking of bonkers, this is just a very, very small side note, because I sent you this and I think this is hilarious and also a bit tragic at the same time kind of thing. But Mussolini's grandson, Romano Mussolini, scoring in Italian professional football. And just the fact that he plays right wing back is too weird as a Christmas anecdote to not throw in there. Absolutely bonkers. Is
his surname Mussolini though?
Yeah, I think so. Romano Mussolini. Yeah.
Why would you keep that?
It's such an odd one to have. Yeah.
Just
change it. Just nip down to, yeah.
Why just become a Papadino or a, Giampieri or I don't know.
Yeah.
It's but I guess your family history is your family history. Scratch far enough back in most people's family history and you're going to find stuff you don't like. It's just that one is particularly, it's like the sort of really clean-cut celebs, Ollie, that do that. Like the family history show, whatever it's called, Who Do I Think I Am, or something like that. And they go back 7 generations. They're like, oh, my great-great-great-great-great-granddad was a serial killer and killed 14 people in London. That's not great, is it? So, like, if you go back far enough, you're going to find a few black sheep in the family.
Definitely. Let's talk about family futures rather than family past.
Oh, yes. Beautiful segue.
Let's go to golf. Let's talk about the PNC Championship this weekend. It's like a family tournament. So you get pro golfer combining with a member of their family, can be a cousin, a nephew, son, as we'll definitely get onto, and it's quite a weird relaxed four balls of, a lot of it is father and son, or Nelly Corder was playing with I can't remember who her family member was now, but like it's just a great tournament because you get really low scoring, you get some icons of the game still kind of doing their stuff, and you get these like rogue family members that are pretty good at golf as well. Apparently, I think Bird Langer has like 6 or 7 grandchildren, and there was a joke that he has to have a play-in tournament for his grandkids to see which one of them is going to play the PNC with him, which I was like, that's amazing, having like the Langer family showdown to see who's going to partner with Bernard Langer going into the weekend, which is quite cool. And we had, obviously every year the story is Woods and Tiger and Charlie. And Charlie Woods just swings a golf club exactly like his father. He's got all the same mannerisms. It's like, yeah, because he's just sat and watched his dad and learnt from his dad for so many years. They're obviously going to look similar and have similar swings and all that kind of stuff. And it sometimes gets overplayed. And then Charlie Woods goes and get his first ever hole-in-one of his golfing career on the 4th hole in this competition. And this has been the huge headline, obviously, about this weekend. If they'd won, it would have been even bigger, but they ended up losing to Bernard Langer in a playoff, as these two in the last group were just going like toe-to-toe through the last 18 holes. But I feel very sorry for Podrick Harrington's lad, who also had a hole-in-one this weekend, also had his first ever hole-in-one this weekend. And it has been an absolute side note because Charlie Woods did it. And the Woods name just rings so much more than the Harrington name. And I feel, it's a really sad play. To the point that I'm not going to pretend I've done a lot of research coming into today, Dave. It's been a long weekend. I can't even remember Podrick Harrington's playing partner's name or relation to Podrick. And I'm pretty sure it's his son. But that's how little anybody cares about the Harrington lad getting a hole-in-one, because it's all about Charlie and Woods. And it's cool. It's a good story. It's a fun way to finish off the golfing year, really.
It also, before it even clicked on the story, Ollie, when you look at, let's see if we can see this. Is that going to be?
You need to bring it down
for the YouTube videos? Probably not.
Yeah.
But the image on BBC Sport of just Tiger Woods congratulating his son Charlie, even before you've clicked on the story, it's just you just feel it, don't you? Ollie's got it there. Yeah, Tiger Woods' son Charlie, 15, hits first hole in one. His dad is just so happy. Yeah, great. A wonderful story. And there's a...
It would be so much darker if there was like the Williams sisters, there's a lot of like nastiness about like they're growing up and almost being forced into tennis, and there's all the rumours about that and everything. And I'm not going to say anything that will put me in any sort of trouble about that because I don't know that enough.
I think that's a fairly open... There's documentaries on that. About dad. Richard was very pushy, and they kind of... It sounded like it was pretty strict, but ultimately maybe they're grateful. So yeah. It
doesn't necessarily feel like that with Tiger and Charlie, and so you're not going to get it. But it would have been great if Tiger was just like stone faced. That's what you're expected to do, Charlie. Because he was a serial winner. He's that Jordan mentality kind of thing. He's got that like, I'm going to compete. I'm going to keep working. He keeps wanting to compete, so much so that he's doing himself injuries time and time again. And it's great to see like Tiger, who's normally very serious on a golf course and everything like that, and whether he can come back and continue to compete at the highest level will be interesting to see. But it's cool to see him just enjoying it. And I was cynical with the LeBron James and Bronny playing together in LA this year, of course, with the LA Lakers. This has just a more organic feel because like Tiger hasn't held the golf world to ransom. He's not forced anybody to bring Charlie in or anything like that. It's just an interest because we're all itching to see if Charlie can produce anything close to his dad. I mean, if he wins like one PGA competition in his career, that will be considered like a huge... I mean, it's a big thing for any golfer to win on the PGA Tour. And a lot of golfers won't ever have that. Charlie gets even a sniff of success in golf. That's such an incredible thing to do, to be in your dad's shadow and at least do something. It'd be unbelievable.
Isn't Kai Trump's granddaughter? She's pretty big into golf, I think. I think she's like semi-pro. She's like 17, 18. So that might be one to keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, well, I want to just duck away from that name for a bit. I'm not saying it's like the Mussolini name at all, but like the Trump name is a very difficult one in golf circles. Like there's a reason why the Open isn't necessarily going to Turnberry at this point, because they're just like, we don't want the Trump aura around the around the Open. So I don't know if that helps or hinders, to be honest. Just
Yeah,
quickly
okay.
on golf as well, we had the match between Koepka, DeChambeau against Rory and Scotty. And Rory and Scheffler just dominated the live players to the point that, like, DeChambeau, who's this, whether you buy it as a real character or not, he's trying to be this like social media, ruffling the kids' heads as he's walking through the US Open and all this kind of stuff. And hey, yeah, Bryson DeChambeau. And he looked sick and miserable to be out there in Vegas on a cold night in Vegas doing this. And it really just didn't whet the appetite for this whole like Live v PGA potential Ryder Cup. Because I just, again, it didn't really matter to me. I mean, the winners were getting 10 million in crypto, which is no small fee. And Scotty Scheffler being
20 million next year.
Scotty Scheffler being Scotty Scheffler just gets it, and he's like, I don't really know anything about crypto, so I guess this is a good enough excuse for me to like research it a bit or something. Like he's completely ambivalent to the idea of
Ollie, 10 million in Bitcoin for lovely stuff that.
And he's just like, I don't really understand this, so it
I've
can
been
go in a
banging on
pile.
about
It may
Bitcoin
end
for
up being worth 100 million. If it ends up being worth nothing, it just doesn't matter to me. It is a crazy thought process that for the layman, but yeah, it was fun, but it didn't really pique my interest at all. Didn't Calvin Candy me at all.
Yeah, the concept of money for athletes. But Bitcoin in American athletes is quite big. I know a couple of the NFL players have had their salaries paid in Bitcoin, I think, Ollie, and they're quite vocal about it. So there's an interesting kind of subplot there.
Yeah, I don't know if we ever get crypto for maybe 10 years being like officially endorsed in things like the Premier League and stuff. I know there's a few crypto trading company sponsors and stuff like that.
Already sponsored by like Crypto.com.
Yeah.
It's going out. I mean, I put decent odds on the first sponsor of NASP. NASP? NASP or NASP.
NASP.
Being a crypto sponsor. I feel like Ollie Wilson might resist that one if we were sponsored by some wacky meme coin, but a gig's a gig, mate.
As long as it's not that Hawk Tour one, I'm okay. Because that is worth nothing.
Our listeners will latch onto that gag, but Ollie Wilson, knowing me as he does, she's disappeared off the face of the earth since that.
Yeah, I know.
She
rinsed millions out of people.
Into American media, mate. That I think we've lost a lot of our listeners with that chat. But yeah, so look out for the NASP meme coin at some point in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Buy it as much as you can, as quickly as you can.
Yeah, don't worry, we won't. Ollie Wilson and I will hold 99%, but we promise we won't sell.
That is one thing that I think I'd just forget about as well. If I had that, it'd just be there. It'd be very much the Scotty Scheffler thing. If I had like $200 in NASP crypto, I'd forget about it, and like 6 years later, oh, is that worse? All right, cool, fine, thanks guys, Merry Christmas.